By what name are you known?
There are some who call me... Tim?
Welcome to another episode of Timmy Talks, the channel where we talk old school magic. And today we bring you old school magic from the Uthden Troll Cup #4 held in Leeuwarden, the Netherlands. And I'm just really excited to show you the videos from this event. The Uthden Troll Cup is by now the biggest old school Magic the Gathering event in the Netherlands, with almost 100 players competing on the Saturday. And this is footage from the Saturday tournament. They have a whole weekend of events. And it's amazing. There are nationalities from all over the world that are coming to this event. And it's just fantastic to be a part of. So if you ever have a chance, visit this tournament, bring your old school cards. It is well worth it. Now, if you want to know more about the event, by the way, I've got links to the Uthden Troll Cup's Facebook page and Instagram account in the description below. So check out the description below for more info. And for today's first round match, we're going to look at Louis, who's playing an Arabian Aggro list. It's red, it's blue, it's green, and he is taking on Erwin, who's playing a 5-color good stuff list. Now, before I start with the deck decks, I would like to point out that, as always, I've put timestamps in the description below. So if you want to go straight to the games themselves, check out that description below, click on MTG Games, and it'll take you straight to the action. And as for here, we are going to start with the deck decks. I'm going to start with the deck of Erwin. That's the man on the left. Let's take a look at his 5-color good stuff list. And here we see the deck of Erwin. So this is really a 5-color good stuff deck, right? And if you're not familiar with that term, a 5-color good stuff deck is you take all the 5 colors of Magic and you just take the best cards and put them together in the deck. You've got 5-color good stuff. And especially with like the card pool in Magic the Gathering 93-94, in this tournament we're playing Swedish, so it's without Fallen Empires. It's really like a narrow choice, right? You're always going to include the Power 9, and that's what we see in this deck as well. We see all the Moxen, the Black Lotus, we see the 3 blue power cards, so you've got the Power 9 going. Then you always play with a bunch of restricted cards, like we see Wheel of Fortune, Regrowth, Balance, Chaos Orb, right? And that is kind of the base of the deck already. Brain Geyser, of course, Mana Drain. So then you've got the base of the game, of the deck, I mean, is set, you know, so that's pretty clear. But then it gets interesting. You know, if you go to these tournaments a lot, you see a lot of 5-color good stuff decks, and it's about the subtle choices that players make. It's the tweaking, because, and maybe this is hard to believe if you're outside of the 93-94 kind of card pool, is that even though it's a set card pool and the cards have been around for so long, the game is still evolving and changing. So that means that even your 5-color good stuff deck, it needs to evolve with the meta. For example, when I'm looking at this list, I'm not seeing a Surrender Befried. That's one of the best creatures in the game, right? But because of City in a Bottle, Maze of If, the card has lost a little bit of popularity, even though we still see it in a lot of finals, by the way. But it's lost a little bit of its popularity. So here you can see that Erwin is making different choices when we look at the creature base. For example, he's going for 4 Suchi and 3 Sarah Angel. Now, the 4 Suchis are really good against the Abyss, which is a card that you'll encounter often at these tournaments. So he's thinking about the local meta, and he's making his decisions based on that. We also see, for example, 3 Copy Artifacts here in the deck. Copy Artifact is a super strong card because there are so many good artifacts, not just the artifacts in Erwin's deck, but also the artifacts that probably the opponent is playing, you know? So Copy Artifact is quite easy to find a target. What I also like about Copy Artifact is that you can use it to copy your Mishra's Factories. We see 4 Mishra's Factories in here. So you activate your factory, then you play your Copy Artifact, you copy it. The interesting thing is, it is then copied as a land. So just as the Mishra's Factory is not activated, it's just the land, you know, so it can pump the other factory, making it an instant 3/3, which is kind of interesting. I find Copy Artifact in general just a super interesting card, you know. Do you, for example, know when you play it and you copy something, it takes over the color, which in this case, well, almost always it's an artifact, so it's a colorless artifact. It's no longer blue, right? So you can use your Red Elemental Blast to counter the Copy Artifact when it's being cast, but as soon as it's chosen its target and it's copied the artifact, you can no longer destroy it with the Red Elemental Blast because it's no longer blue. I know, it sounds weird because it looks blue, but that's the way it is. Anyway, this is the deck of Erwin. This is a strong deck. This is not an easy first round for Louis, but Louis' deck is not that weak either. Let's take a look at Louis' list. And here we see the deck of Louis. So this is quite nice, right? I've called it Arabian Aggro because of those 4 Curd Apes and 4 Surrender Befrieds. and of course the aggro bit because it's super aggressive. Interestingly here is that Louis chose to play with the Serendip Efreets, where Erwin has chosen not to. So that's going to be interesting to see how the Serendip is going to perform. I have to say in this deck, the Serendip Efreets fits really, really well because it's a quick creature, it's got great stats, and it's a creature meant to be turned sideways, and that's exactly what you want to do with this deck. Curd Ape turn 1, turn 2 Argovian Pixies, which are dynamite against those annoying Mishra's Factories that actually Louis is playing with as well. And then turn 3, your Serendip Efreet. If you can find a mock somewhere in that process, you can cast those creatures even faster, turn them sideways, attack. And then, of course, these creatures are complemented with a lot of burn. Look at that. We've got Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, Psyblast. We've got 1 copy of Firebolt. There's just a lot of firepower in this deck. Dang, 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 dang. And the game can be over in like 5 minutes. In this matchup, it is really, Erwin being, trying to stay alive in those first 5-6 turns. And Louis just trying to kill everything on site and trying to make it into a short game. I think if Louis cannot win it early game, it's going to be more tough for him, and Erwin knows this. So Erwin's probably going to try just to stay alive those first couple of turns and then try to take over the game with this more control-ish deck. Now, when we're looking at the rest of the deck, of course, we see the power cards, the restricted cards. They're making these strategies even better because the problem with aggro is that sometimes you run out of steam. You've played out your whole hand, the cards are there, your opponent has managed to stabilize, and that's it. You're top decking, hoping to find something, but knowing that every turn that the game takes longer, your chances of winning actually go down and down and down and down. So that's where the power comes in, right? That's where the restricted cards come in. You've got your Ancestral Recall to kind of get you the new fuel that you need. You've got your Brain Geyser, Mana Drain into Brain Geyser, fantastic. Mana Drain into Fireball, fantastic. You've got your Time Walk, which I think is really good in these decks because you're playing a creature-heavy deck, so having the extra turn means an extra combat step that can usually win you the game. You also have Time Twister in the deck, which is great because you get to shuffle back all that direct damage and then draw them again. If your opponent's on 6th or something, play that Time Twister and you're probably going to find the Chain Lightning and the Lightning Bolt to do the job for you. So the power cards I feel in these type of strategies are really, really, really good. They're always good, but in this deck, they're super good. Anyway, this is the deck of Louis. We've looked at the deck of Erwin. I really think it's a 50-50. They're looking like super, super strong decks. You know what? Let's go to round number 1, to the first match of the Uthden Troll Cup. Louis' aggro deck versus Erwin's Control Brew. Let's go. Game number 1, here we go with, on the left, Erwin. He's on the play with his 5-color Good Stuff deck. Starting with a City of Brass, passing the turn to Louis, and he's on his Arabian Aggro plan. Are we going to see a Curd Ape turn 1? His deck is blue, red, and green. There we see a Taiga. Taiga, Curd Ape, go. Classic opener, 2-3. Are we going to see a Swords to Plowshares? Or, there is a Lightning Bolt in hand there for Erwin. He's not using it, though. Could play that Felwar Stone now that he's dropped the Tundra. And then, of course, use the Felwar to make red mana next turn to kill the Ape if he wants to. Maybe he's not that bothered with the Ape. Taking a damage here, playing the Felwar. Gonna go to 19, pass the turn. Let's see if Louis can find some action here. Playing a Mishra's Factory. I think he's gonna put the Ape into the red zone. There's the attack. Are we gonna see that Bolt? No, we're not. Gonna drop to 17. And there's a Argovian Pixies. So this is getting out of hand quickly. Next turn, Louis can attack for 6. There's a Swords to Plowshares drawn by Erwin. Let's see what that other card is that he's now putting at the front of his hand. Is that a balance, perhaps? It's really tough to see. If it's a balance, it would explain why. Yeah, it's a balance. It explains why he didn't play the Bolt earlier in the game. Because this is now a really good 2-for-1. Look at the hand sizes as well. We have Louis on 5. And I believe also 5 cards there for Erwin. Missing a land drop, though. That is a little bit painful. So now it's very tempting for Louis to animate and attack for 2, but that could be dangerous because remember, Erwin still has that Bolt in hand. There is a Volcanic Island. Is he going to play? Ooh, he is going to animate into the red zone. I believe we're going to see that Bolt here. Erwin dropping to 16. This could be quite disastrous for Louis. So Louis had a pretty good start, pretty aggressive, but now he's lost all his creatures. There was a very good balance for 2-for-1. The bolt on the factory, well played by Erwin. And now he can kind of take over the game. If he can find a land though, a land and a sushi would be quite good here. Just passing the turn though, stuck on lands. So this is an opportunity for Louis to kind of get back into this. If he can find a land and for example a Serendip, that would be quite good. Erwin of course still has that Swords to Plowshares in hand, but hey, you know what? Just force your opponent to use up all their resources, and at a certain point in the game your creatures will get through. Ooh, interesting. So he could now go for one of the lands of Erwin. There's a counterspell though. That's very understandable. You don't want to lose a land if you're Erwin. Already very low on lands this game. There is a Mox Ruby. So that's pretty good. He is of course playing with all the Mox and with the Black Lotus. Oh, a Mind Twist. That is brutal. There's a Bolt in response. Gonna drop to 11, but I mean, it's gonna take care of his entire hand here. Look at that. Brain Geyser gone, Bolt gone, Counterspell gone. And he was tapped out. Well, actually, he had 1 mana left, but not enough to counter because of the Chaos Orb. Ooh, this is a fantastic top deck here. This is a great answer to the Mind Twist. Ancestral Recall. Louis refilling his hand, playing a Curd Ape. This is good. Some pressure on the board. Even more pressure. 2 Curd Apes. And what a top deck by Louis. This is getting him back into the game. I mean, I've seen so many games where a Mind Twist was just the end of it, but because of this Ancestral Recall, he's all back into it. There we see a Mox Pearl, no Sarah Angel, and a pass. Louis, 2 cards in hand, probably going to put both his creatures into the red zone, going to try to deal 4 points of damage. Erwin currently at 11. I'm expecting his Swords to Plowshares here. Ooh, double Swords. Taking care of business. And there's just a lot of removal in the deck of Erwin, having access to Swords to Plowshares and Lightning Bolt. And that's of course the good thing about these 4-color good stuff decks. You have all the colors to choose from, so you just pick the best removal, the best card draw, the best creatures, and it's all in there. Anyway, seeing a Tropical Island here, and there's a Serendip of Freed, so this is not too bad for Louis. Well played. Always play your creature then in the second main. First go to combat. And Erwin was tempted here to play his double swords. Didn't want to take more damage, but now the Serendip hits the board, and the question is, does he have an answer? 2 cards in hand only and a pass. There we see a damage from the Serendip for Louis. Doesn't really matter, he's still on 23 after those swords. There's the attack. Look at the life total of Erwin, gonna drop to 8. 1 card in hand for Louis. If it's gas, that would be quite good. It's a regrowth on the Ancestral. Oh, this is really good. That Ancestral Recall is really a life changer for Louis here in this game. It got him back after the Mind Twist, and it's getting him in front now with finding it again with the regrowth. There's a Soul Ring. Not the best card to draw. Also because he's already lost a Brain Geyser to the twist earlier. If he would have still had that Brain Geyser, that Soul Ring would be quite solid. Erwin has drawn his card, 3 cards in hand. Has to deal with that Serendip. Already played out 2 Swords to Plowshares. There's a copy. Ooh, copying the Mox Pearl. That's not very impressive. Another damage here for Louis. Going to drop to 22. And I assume another attack is going to put Erwin on 5. If Erwin can find a Sarah Angel, I mean, that would be ideal for him. There's an Argovian Pixies. And remember, Louis also has access, of course, to Psyblast, to Chain Lightnings. We only see 2 Lightning Bolts there in the bin. Another Serendip! And this is quite nice for Louis because he knows the balance is already out of the game, so he can just, keep committing to the board. We do see another... Is that another Swords? Hard to see, though. I don't think so. It's a City of Brass. We see a City of Brass, copy artifact, disenchant in the hand of Erwin. That is pretty worthless. Beautiful signed City of Brass, by the way. I do like it when Mark Tedden takes his time to sign a card. It looks very good. Anyway, passing the turn, Louis dropping to 20. I think it's the end of the road here An attack here for 8, and that's it. Game number 1 going to Louis' aggro strategy. Both players are going to go dive into their sideboards, and we'll catch back up with them in game number 2. Game number 2, here we go. Erwin, of course, being on the play after losing that first game against Louis here. Louis being on the draw. Look at that. He's taking a mulligan, so he's going to go down to 6. At least he's on the draw, so he'll draw back up to 7. Let's see what Erwin can do here in turn number 1. There's the volcanic island. I do see a Soul Ring in hand there. Ancestral Recall. Wow, that's quite a good start. I guess he's got a Mox there somewhere in hand. Drawing one, as a matter of fact, a Mox Sapphire. He probably has another Mox also. There's the Mox Pearl. So you use the Pearl to play the Soul Ring. There's a Suchi in hand there. He just misses one more Mox to also play out the Suchi, I think. Because he can now do the Soul Ring. Then he has 3 mana, which is not enough to cast the Suchi. But next turn he can cast a Suchi, and then if that one blue card there is a copy artifact, for example, he could copy the Suchi, and then Louis is in some serious trouble. Let's see what he can do. Tapping 3. What does he have? Does he have another? Does he want to play the copy artifact now, or is that another card in hand? Oh, it's a Time Walk! This is devastating! Oh, you see Louis there dropping his hand. Oh man, and he's probably like, you know, whatever, there's nothing I can do here. What a powerhouse here by Erwin, playing an Ancestral Recall and a Time Walk in turn 1 of game number 2. And I mean, he's almost already won it. There is a Mishra's Factory. I'm sure he's going to deploy the Suchi now. But what an insane opener here. There's the Suchi, and look at all the permanents on the side of Erwin, and now Louis is allowed to take his turn 1. I mean, this is insane. Also remember, Louis doesn't have access to white, which means he doesn't have a Swords to Plowshares. And there's a Cheers on that turn 1. Well, turn 1 and 2, actually. What a crazy start. Perfect start for Erwin. I mean, let's see if Louis can bounce back. I mean, this is going to be super tough for him. A 4 toughness creature is also, you know, difficult for Louis because he cannot answer it with a bolt on turn 1. I'm pretty sure he's got crumbles in there as well, so he could use those. Anyway, playing a Volcanic into a Curdape, which is just a 1/1, and a Mox Emerald. So the Curdape is now still a 1/1 because there's no forest in play on the side of Louis. And I mean, I think if you're Erwin, you want to animate the factory, you just take the risk and go for 6. I mean, maybe Louis has that crumble, but then he's got to choose between Suchi and Factory anyway. He doesn't have mana open for a Bolt, for example, so I would go for that, unless, of course, you have a better option in hand. There's a Plains. Yeah, animating here, attacking for 6 into the red zone. And Louis just taking the 6, no crumble. Gonna drop to 14. He's going to tap some more. Another Suchi. I mean, wow. This game number 2 was done with that turn 1 opener by Erwin, actually. The only thing that can kind of, you know, save Louis here is a balance, but he's not playing with white. I mean, I can't really think of a card that can save him. He's so far behind at this point. For example, he could play out a Serendip Efreet, but Serendip is just not great against the Suchis because they're 4/4. Serendip is 3/4. I mean, it is an okay blocker for the factory. The Curdape, by the way, is now a 2/3 because of the Tropical Island. So the Curdape has found a forest, a nice tropical forest. Well done, Curdape. So that can at least block the Mishra's Factory. There's another ape, so 2 apes can block a Suchi. It's really nice, by the way, to see the Curdape in action. I mean, 2/3 is pretty good, you know, for 1 red. There is a City of Brass. A Mox Emerald on the side of Erwin as well. Only 1 card in hand. Just going to put his 2 Suchis into the red zone. So willing to make the trade. I think we're going to see a double block here. And of course, the danger of the double block is if Erwin has a Bolt or a Swords, he can, before damage is dealt, kill one of the 2 apes and then kill the other ape as well. But I think if you're Louis, if you're so far behind, you got to take the risk. Double blocking here is Suchi. Suchi's going to die, it seems. Remember, no mana burn in Swedish. It looks like Erwin is kind of doubting it still, but okay, the block has been declared. One of the Curd Ape dies, and the Suchi dies, and 4 points of damage. I think this is understandable from Erwin as well. Just put the pressure on. And he's lost the Curd Ape, meaning next turn you can swing in with the Suchi. He doesn't have a good block. There's a factory though, that could change it slightly. He could double block again. And then he'll probably lose the factory in that exchange. There's a strip mine, okay, that can take care of the factory. I mean, Louis still on 10, he hasn't lost yet. He's probably going to drop to 6 though, unless of course Louis has access to Psy Blast. The Psionic Blast would be great here. You could play that on the Suchi. The Library of Alexandria, I mean, if he can find a draw 7, he is playing with Time Twister, I believe. Attacking here with the Suchi, putting it into the red zone. Are we going to see a Psy Blast or perhaps a Bolt and a block? That could be a possibility as well. Or is he just going to take 4, drop to 6? Looking at his hand though, are we going to see some action? There's the block. Okay, so I'm expecting to see a Bolt then. He's going to block on the 8, but in response though, before damage is dealt, probably we're going to see that Bolt. It does mean that Louis doesn't take any damage. Quite interesting. Another line of play here for Erwin could have been to bolt the Curd Ape beforehand and then attack. Oh, he is doing that. Okay. So there is still damage here for Louis. Gonna drop to 6. There is a Taiga. Seems to be a little photo moment there. There were photographers at the event as well. It was really nice. It was really well done. It was a really cool event. If you ever have a chance, the Uthden Troll Cup in Leeuwarden. It's a yearly tournament. And I'll put the information in the description below, the link to their Facebook page and Instagram page. But this is really tough for Louis now that he's lost that Curd Ape. He's dropped to 6. He really needed a Psy Blast, or at least he needed this block to happen and then be able to play perhaps a Bolt on the Suchi, taking care of that Suchi. So 6 here for Louis. Tapping 2, tapping 4. Brain Geyser. It's understandable he wants to keep the strip mine untapped because, you know, if then Erwin attacks, animates the factory, he can strip it. So that makes sense. But I mean, for Louis, he's walking on a very thin line. I mean, and that was to be expected after that insane opener by Erwin here in game number 2. He's probably going to swing in here for 6, and I think that Louis is probably going to strip the factory, going to go to 2. And then if, you know, Erwin has a Bolt in hand, for example, he can win the game right now. So he's going to animate. In response, we're going to see the strip. And he's going to go for 4 into the red zone. He's going to drop to 2. And that is a copy artifact. So he's going to copy probably the Suchi here, exactly. So even one blocker isn't enough for Louis. He needs to take care of both creatures. Argovian Pixies would be quite nice. If you can have a land drop, say Psy Blast is a problem as well because Louis is now on 2, so that would kill him actually. That's another problem for Louis. He needs like, okay, this is a blocker at least. If he can have like a Crumble and Argovian Pixies, there isn't one Argovian Pixies in his hand there. He can play it out. Remember, Argovian Pixie's damage that is dealt by artifacts is reduced to 0, so it's like the perfect blocker at this point in the game. I think Louis can survive one more turn. And then if he has a Bolt, that would be ideal, right? He can block one of the Suchis, then kill it with a Bolt, block the other Suchi with the factory, and then of course he's going to lose the factory, but it is what it is. I mean, he has to animate here or else he's going to die. He's on 2, so he's animating there 2-2. You've got to do what you've got to do, man. You've got to stay alive. Blocking and bolting. Okay, taking care of one of the Suchis. I mean, this is not too bad. This is better than I expected. Factory is dead, and he's got a blocker for that one leftover factory. I mean, and look at the hand of Erwin, only having one card left. There is a Taiga, 2 cards in hand. They seem to be lands. If Erwin can find a removal spell here. There's the bolt. Okay, that is the end of the game. Or not. What are we going to see? Oh, a mana drain. I love it. I really thought this was the end of the line for Louis, but he's found that mana drain. I thought he had 2 lands in hand, but he didn't. There was a mana drain in there. That is so cool. So the mana drain helps Louis here to live another day. And also another bolt out of the deck of Erwin. So for Erwin now also his Swords to Plowshares would be quite good, right? He can Swords to Pixies, then attack for 4, and Louis would die, would go down to 0. But maybe Louis has another creature in hand, who knows? The problem for him is that 2 life total, right? The Psyblast in his deck are worthless. Surrender Befried is pretty much worthless. It's really a problem for him. Tapping 2 mana. What could he have for 2? A Regrowth. Okay. Getting back the Brain Geyser. I'm liking this. And remember, because he's on 2, even the City of Brass is kind of risky. Although it doesn't matter much, I guess, whether you're on 2 or on 1. Passing the turn now. Oh, wow. So next turn he can Brain Geyser. Oh, Swords to Plowshares. Swords to Plowshares. That's it. Gonna go to 4, then take the hit from the Suchi. Gonna go down to 0. That's it. The end of the road here. But I think, Louis, you did quite well considering that insane opener by Erwin here. That was just absolutely sick. It does mean we have a 1-1, and that means we're gonna go to game number 3. Game number 3, here we go. So it's 1-1. Louis is on the play. Does that make him a slight favorite? I don't know. I have to say the 5-color good stuff deck is looking really good. Really strong. I think I see some Mox in there in hand, a Soul Ring in hand as well there for Erwin. I think we're up to another, we're up for another explosive turn 1. Let's see what he can do. Kind of sorting the cards in the order that he wants to play them out, I think. There we see a Mishra's Factory, a Mox Jet, a Mox Ruby. He can still play the Soul Ring, then if he has a Suchi in hand, he can play it. Tapping the Ruby, playing the Soul Ring. Insane. Tapping 4. There's the Suchi. So turn 1 Suchi. The only silver lining here for Louis is that, Erwin now only has 3 cards in hand. So it's great to have all the Mox and Soul Ring turn 1, but you do run out of steam. And remember, in game number 2, there's a Shatter. This is a really good Shatter. In game number 2, Erwin had that Ancestral Recall and that Time Walk to help him with his opener. No, you got to be kidding me. Another Ancestral Recall here. That is just really tough for Louis here. That is really tough. That is really setting him back here, because the one silver lining here was that card advantage that Louis got because of all the Moxen and Soul Ring in that opener of Erwin. But yeah, finding that Ancestral Recall changes everything. Drawing 2 extra cards basically. There's the attack for 2 here, putting Louis on 18. And next turn, if he can find a white source, he can deploy that Sarah Angel in hand. That's going to be devastating. There's a pass. There's a Mishra's Factory. So again, Louis has to deal with these power 9 filled first couple of turns by his opponent. Okay, there's a Time Walk, some power here from Louis as well. But it's not, it's not the kind of Time Walk you want to use. In the deck tech section, I talked about the Time Walk being very powerful in Louis' deck because his deck is so creature heavy and you could have a double combat but he's kind of forced to play this early more as a tempo play. Does he have a land drop? Tapping 3 here. Okay, there's the Serendipity. Looks like he's going to miss a land drop here though, passing the turn. Again, that is unfortunate because I am expecting Erwin here to drop the Serra Angel. He actually has 2 Serra Angels in hand. That is devastating. There we see a plateau. Are we now going to see the first Serra Angel hitting the board? Taking a damage from the city. Going to drop to 18. There's the Serra Angel. So this is a big problem, you know. The Serendip is great, but it is a 3/4. So the Serra Angel is a great answer. And because of all the Moxen and the power, well, you can see that here now. It's actually quite easy to cast a 5 casting cost creature. That's what I'm trying to say on turn 3. Louis needs a Psyblast here. I mean, Psyblast would be ideal. Taking care of the Angel and hitting Erwin for 3 as well. That would be super good. But he's missing a land drop, not doing anything, just passing the turn. That is super bad. I mean, you want to turn that Serendip sideways, but first he's got to destroy the Serra Angel. And the bad news for Louis is there's one more Serra Angel coming. Are we going to see a Swords? Okay, Swords here on the Serendip makes sense. There's a tap. Are we going to see a Mana Drain? Okay, a regular counterspell countering the Swords to Plowshares. He does have... No, that's a Fireball in hand. For a moment there, I thought it was a Red Elemental Blast, but that's a Fireball. He is attacking now for 4. Louis taking the damage, dropping to 13. And this is why Serra Angel is so good, right? I mean, Erwin doesn't even need to tap it down, you know? He can now still use it as a blocker next turn. Tapping 4 mana here. Because he's going to copy the Mishra's Factory. He's going to pass the turn. It does seem he's tapping 1 mana too many for that, but doesn't matter much it seems. But I don't think you need to tap the Jet for that, because Sol Ring gives you 2 mana. Anyway, passing the turn to Louis. Louis dropping to 12. Played out the City of Brass, so he's found some mana finally. Tapping 2. Drop to 16. There's an Argovian Pixies. Yeah, these creatures just look really weak as soon as your opponent starts casting those Serra Angels. There's a Bolt on the life total of Louis. Louis dropping to 8. Oh man, that's a problem. I think that Ancestral Recall was really the game changer here. You know, Erwin finding that recall when his hand was almost empty. And then he found some Serra Angels. I mean, that made such a difference. Because the Shatter was a great response by Louis on that first turn threat, that Suchi. There's a Fireball. Is it already the end here? He's going to play a huge Fireball for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, for 8. Yeah, he's got 9 mana. Fireball for 8. There's a Lightning Bolt back. But yeah, that's the win here for Erwin. Ooh, there actually wasn't another Serra in hand. There was a Suchi in hand there. I thought that he had a double Serra in hand, but he didn't. That was probably the Swords to Plowshares, but what a game. And here we can really see the strength of these 5-color Good Stuff decks. You just have such a big toolbox. Every time you add another color, yes, you lose a little bit of consistency, but you add so many options to your deck, you know, you add so many brewing options. Anyway, it was a great game. It was great to see both of these decks doing what they want to do. We saw also Louis' deck performing well. They're winning a game, but in the end, Erwin's deck was simply too strong. His toolbox was too big. Anyway, this was only round number 1 of the Uthden Troll Cup. I'll be back next week with more action from this exciting tournament. If you're not a subscriber yet, please hit that subscribe button and ring that bell. because then you will be notified whenever I post another video. And like I said, every week I will post one YouTube video about the Uthden Troll Cup. So this was round 1. I'm gonna go all the way to the finals. And before you go, I'd like to ask you to like this video, share this on your socials, and comment in the comment sections. All these things are free and they really help the channel move forward. So thank you very much for doing one of those 3 things, or maybe all 3 of those things would be fantastic. You've got my eternal gratitude. Then there's one other thing that you can do, and that is support the channel financially, because I have my own Patreon page. You can check out patreon.com/TimmyTalks to find more information about that. The cool thing is you can already support the show starting with just $1 a month, and it really helps me to keep doing what I love to do, which is make old school Magic videos. So please have a look on patreon.com/TimmyTalks for all the info. And one of the cool perks is that at the end of the video, your name will be mentioned in the end scroll when you're a patron, including this video. So let's go to the end scroll.
What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? Early in the morning, way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises, early in the morning. Put him in the longboat until he's sober, put him in the longboat until he's sober, put him in the longboat until he's sober, early in the morning. Way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises, early in the morning. Pull out the plug and wet him all over, pull out the plug and wet him all over, pull out the plug and wet him all over, early in the morning. Way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises, early in the morning. What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? Put him in the scout to the host my son, he'll put him in the scout to the host my son, he'll put him in the scout to the host my son, he'll early in the morning. Way hey up she rises, way hey up she rises, way hey up she rises, early in the morning.
Igitus figitus sumba kazing.